Just want to say, from the bottom of our hearts, F you, DW! Have initials of those. Take that, DW Griffith.
Thank you, guys. This video is brought to you by viewers like you. Thank you. Please remember to subscribe. If we can hit 50,000 subs by New Year's, I'll cover Arthur's Missing Pal as my next subscriber milestone special. Let's not waste any more time and delve right in. And I say, hey! Arthur and the Brain have invented a machine that tells you just how much of a domineering jerk someone is. Arthur's dad barely registers, while Mr. Ratburn's levels are off the charts. Guess we know who wears the pants in that relationship. Arthur goes to test the machine on DW, who turns out to be so big of a jerk that she destroys it.
What a surprise.
DW goes shopping for Emily's birthday present and has her heart set on the Marie Antoinette doll, which comes with a plastic cake and a detachable head. Mrs. Reed says it's too expensive, until her daughter threatens to have a public meltdown if she doesn't buy it. The next day, DW goes to Emily's party, which is so French I'm surprised it hasn't surrendered to the German barbecue next door. DW is severely underdressed for the party, but still has the gall to turn her non-existent nose up at Emily's Eiffel Tower cake, snail eclairs, and live polka band? Do the French enjoy a good polka, or is that just a Pennsylvania thing? I'm just saying, I've been to France and I don't remember hearing tubas and accordions echoing in the streets. DW gives her present to Emily and demands she open it on the spot. Emily explains she'll be opening her gifts at the end of the party after they do 34 other activities first, which as an introvert sounds like absolute hell. DW bitches and moans through the entire party. She makes her frustrations known, that way everyone is having just as bad a time as her.
This movie stinks.
Emily is about to make her birthday wish when DW blows out her candles.
Hurry it up already, before you turn 6!
Fuck you! Sorry, I know I usually wait to the end of the episode to say that, but seriously, you already got your own birthday wish. Back off. Finally, it's time to open the gifts. What's that supposed to be, emo Mickey Mouse? DW shoves James out of the way so she can get to Emily first. She saves Emily the trouble of opening her present and insists on showing her how to play with it. Nice going, you fils de pute. Mrs. Reed picks up DW and asks her how the party was. Gee, I don't know. You let your demon daughter out in public without a chaperone. How the hell do you think it went? The next day, DW tries to invite Emily over for a playdate. Emily lies to the bossy big mouth and says she's busy practicing her French. Can you say, je te veux va te faire foutre? DW next calls James and is surprised he doesn't want to spend time with the girl who sexually harassed him. Even the Tibbleturds want nothing to do with her. Arthur says he's going to the library and DW decides to tag along, because having fun isn't hard when you've got a library card. There it is! They walk past Emily's house as DW is somehow oblivious to her best friend having fun without her. Where the hell was that trampoline during the birthday party? They next pass by James's house, where DW finds him swimming with the Tibble tightwads. The three are bonding over their mutual hatred of DW.
I'm DW!
Yeah, you know things are bad when James would rather spend time with the look-alike losers than DW. DW storms off as she decides to cut ties with all her friends, even though it's clear they already made that decision without her. Instead of apologizing to her friends, DW decides to play by herself. She sets up a ping pong table in the driveway but somehow doesn't think to raise one side up to keep the ball from getting away. Sadly, the scene doesn't end with her chasing the ball into oncoming traffic. Meanwhile, Arthur and Buster are watching Children of the Damned, as any 8-year-old would, when DW steps directly in front of the TV.
What you watching?
Children of the Beans.
Wait, is this supposed to be a Children of the Corn homage? The writers know these two movies aren't the same, right? You had one job, PBS. The two are surprised to see DW spending the day inside.
Why don't you play with your friends?
I don't have any.
Arthur and Buster make no objection.
I thought you were gonna play by yourself. That was before I knew how boring I was.
Again, the two make no objection. DW demands to know why nobody wants to hang out with her. Arthur points out the obvious by reminding her of the time she invited James over and bossed him around the whole time.
No, you're not doing it right.
Seriously, why does this poor boy bother with her at all? DW refuses to admit fault and blames everyone else for doing everything wrong. Arthur then reminds her of when she hogged the balance beam during gymnastics.
You should apologize.
We're sorry.
You haven't done anything wrong.
We haven't?
I know, I'm just surprised as you are. And yes, I realize now she didn't quit gymnastics after DW flips. You can stop pointing that out to me in the comments, please. DW again refuses to accept her mistake and blames the Tibbletaints for distracting her. She rejects her brother's advice and says the world would be a better place if everyone was like her. DW nearly dozes off when a kid shows up to play with her. The kid turns out to be just as big a pain as DW, because she is DW. Wait, why are you surprised? You were looking right at her face 10 seconds ago. DW gets swarmed by dozens of her clones as they slowly nag her to death. Damn, they really busted out all the skins for this episode. Surprise, surprise, it turns out the whole thing was just a dream. A horrible, horrible dream. DW finally realizes the error of her ways and goes to gymnastics class. The other kids grimace at her arrival and James goes to hide in the bathroom. Smart man. Emily storms off when DW says she can use the balance beam first. Emily says DW will just make fun of her, which she almost does instinctively before biting her tongue. DW gives up her turn so Emily can try again. DW wins back her friends, which inspires the Tibble Tornadoes to see who can be nicer. Emily invites DW over for a playdate while the diabolical dimwits attempt to kill each other off screen. Let's review. DW convinced her mom to buy an expensive toy for her best friend's birthday, even though she clearly wanted the doll for herself. She ruined Emily's birthday party by complaining the whole time and refusing to let her play with her present. She was somehow surprised when her friends started avoiding her and chose to turn her back on them. She refused to change her attitude until she realized her worst nightmare is being trapped in a room with herself. And even when she finally apologized and put her ego in check, we all know it's only a matter of time before she reverts back to square one and drives all her friends away again. God, it's good to be back. F-U-D-W.
And I say, hey!
Arthur complains how DW insists on doing everything he does, like the time she made him look like a jackass at his birthday party, or when she entered the same basketball contest as him and won. Hey, what's with this underhand crap? This isn't softball. Turns out DW's new obsession is learning to ride a two-wheeler.
I don't know how to stop!
Oh, if only. Arthur is putting up posters for the bike-a-thon. Damn, Principal Haney, where you been hiding those hips? Arthur goes to Grandma Tibble to get sponsored when the Telltale Tibbles spring up from under the floorboards. Arthur gets his sponsorship when the demonic duo make him trip and break his neck. That afternoon, Arthur gets ready to go biking with his friends.
Did your mom say you can ride in the bike-a-thon, Buster?
I have to carry a cellular phone.
Cellular phone.
Damn it, show, stop reminding me how old you are, because it'll make me remember how old I am, and I don't like that. DW finds out about the bike-a-thon and demands to sign up. Francine tells her she'd be too slow on a tricycle. Then again, these kids are riding their bikes in denim jeans, so maybe she'd have a shot. DW tries to keep pace with her brother and ends up rolling all the way back to her house. She nurtures her fragile ego by retreating to the comfort of her imagination, where she's a two-wheeling badass who can outrace her brother, a horse, and the entire lineup of Formula One.
What kind of bike is that?
A two-wheeler!
For goodness sake, DW, it's a two-wheeler, not a Toyota. DW gets snapped back to reality by the Tibble Trolls, who show off their new bikes, complete with custom jump scare horns. They tease her that she won't be able to use her tricycle in the race.
Because it's a bike-a-thon, not a trike-a-thon.
You stay up all night coming up with that one? At dinner, DW starts kissing her dad's ass harder than Mr. Ratburn. DW's mom sees through her daughter's charade and tells her to cut the crap. DW then demands to get a two-wheeler while her eyebrows try to devour the rest of her face. DW's parents take her to the bike shop where she shits on every model in the store, until she finds this purple eyesore, which she customizes with her own handwritten vanity plate. The next day, DW pesters her dad to teach her to ride her new bike. Mr. Reed is busy making a lasagna Taj Mahal for the Elwood City Culture Club, which makes no sense since most lasagna is made with ground beef. DW begins to cry, and her dad pushes her onto Arthur without even asking him. Arthur and crew try to teach DW how to ride her bike, but can't agree on how to teach her. The lesson falls to pieces before DW even gets on the damn thing. The kids say screw it and head to lunch.
How do I get down?
You don't. You live there now. Arthur tries to teach DW the hand signals when she ends up summoning a cabbage from Mr. Sipple.
Where I come from, doing that on a bike means bring me a cabbage, fast!
This guy was only in 3 episodes, yet he clearly deserved his own spin-off. Don't tell me you wouldn't watch postcards from Mr. Sipple. DW impatiently demands to start riding, but forgets to ask how to stop the bike, until it's too late. She ends up flat on the ground and tries to gain some sympathy with her crocodile tears. Arthur persists with the lessons, like the good brother he is, and gradually teaches DW how not to suck at riding. He teaches her how to steer as well as avoid dogs. Wait, dogs like Pal or dogs like Fern? How are the animals of Elwood not stuck in a perpetual species war? DW tries to show off to the Tibble tire marks, who tease her for using training wheels. Their taunts succeed in pissing off DW, whose eyes cross so far that they shoot out of her ears. She goes back to buttering up her dad before demanding he take off her training wheels. Oh, looks like Mr. Reed got into the Adderall again. She barely gets on the bike before falling on her ass. She tries to ride again and falls headfirst into the garbage can, where she belongs. DW's dad offers to put her training wheels back on to prevent her from killing herself. DW tells her dad to fuck off. DW tries to teach herself to ride a bike, only to fall on her face and stab herself on a fence post. That's weird. Most vampires tend to vaporize when they get stabbed with a wooden stake. She almost makes it down the street when the Tibble tripwires cause her to crash. DW refuses to give up, no matter how many times she hilariously gets knocked down.
I don't care if it takes till I'm 21 and I'm one giant scab.
Oh honey, you crashed 6 times in the last minute. You're not gonna make it to 21. DW finally gets the hang of things, and her first instinct is to show off to the Tibble Treks, who are so flabbergasted they crash their bikes and die. Okay, maybe not that extreme, but Timmy definitely stabbed his eyes out running face first into that bush. It's the day of the bike-a-thon, and the Reed family anxiously waits for Principal Haney to start the show.
Go!
Wait, he plastered his ass all over the posters and he's not even riding in the race? What a load of false advertising. DW is keeping pace with her parents when the Bildrat brothers speed past her with ease.
Hi, DW!
Maybe they'd go faster if Mr. Reed wasn't wearing his goddamn khaki pants. Like father, like son. DW spots a car passing by and begs her parents to teach her how to drive. Because if there's one thing the world needs right now, it's DW with a driver's license. Let's review. DW signed up for the bike-a-thon solely because her brother signed up for it first. She instantly got jealous of the Tibble's 2-wheelers and badgered her parents into getting her a big kid bike. She bullied her brother into teaching her how to ride and nearly got both of them killed. When the Tibbles continued to push her buttons, she insisted on ditching her training wheels even though she still couldn't ride a bike. She nearly broke every bone in her body before managing to stay upright for more than 10 seconds. She used her newfound skills to show off to the Tibbles, who still passed her immediately during the actual bike-a-thon. And even when DW successfully learned how to ride a bike, her attention immediately shifted to learning how to drive and begged her parents to get her a car. God help us when that day inevitably comes. FUDW.
And I say, hey!
The episode opens with DW's preschool class singing about the little old lady who swallowed a fly, a song about a woman with an eating disorder who engorges herself with live animals until she dies. The kids get ready for nap time as Emily wonders who in their right mind would try to swallow a live horse.
Why did the old lady swallow a horse? To catch the dog, to catch the cat, to catch the bird, to catch the spider.
Why does Timmy sound like James? Timmy, did you eat James? The big-headed brothers get into a shouting match over which of them would swallow a fly. DW pulls a 200 IQ move by throwing a blanket over them.
Throw a blanket over it!
Later that day, DW and James are playing on the swings when DW spots something in the sandbox and knocks James on his ass. DW finds a bouncy ball in the sandbox and immediately gets into a turf war with the Tibble tightwads.
Give me it! Give me! It's mine! Let go of it! Let go!
Emily lies to DW that the ball was a gift from her French nanny.
It's called a cheval. That's French for ball.
Actually, cheval is the French term for horse. Oh, that's why they called the episode that. DW believes her friend's fib without a second thought, but then says she wants to ask Emily's nanny if she has any more balls. It's the end of the day, and Emily is on the verge of shitting her pants. Thankfully, DW gets picked up moments before Emily, giving the French fibber ample time to flee the crime scene. That afternoon, Emily is watching Days of Our Lives with her nanny, as any 5-year-old would, when DW shows up with the Tibble turds in tow to demand the ball back. Emily says they can't come inside, lying that she and her nanny have come down with a deadly case of halitosis. That stinks. Emily goes to get some ice cream and finds DW spying on her from the kitchen window.
Ah!
Who does that? DW is now convinced Emily is lying to her, because nobody would ever eat ice cream when they're sick.
Maybe Maria Ann really is sick. Of course you would defend her. You are a snowball thief.
Shut the hell up, you resolved that shit 2 seasons ago. DW spots Emily's nanny at the checkout aisle and comes up with a plan to destroy her best friend's will to live. The next day, DW tries to entrap Emily into confessing when the dim-witted duo screw up her plan.
Ha! You're lying! You ruined the trap! You're supposed to wait until she says Maria Len is still sick! Sorry, I forgot!
DW tells Emily she saw her nanny at the store and demands to know the truth. Instead of coming clean, Emily digs herself in deeper by claiming the woman was actually her nanny's identical twin. Dun dun dun! The gullible goobers fall for her sob story, while DW is foaming at the mouth. She tells Emily to screw off before falling back on her reliable cuck. That night, Emily gets a call from Mrs. Reed, who offers her condolences. Because apparently DW is so petty, she roped her mom into her scheme just to weed out Emily's deceit. Emily is so upset that she has a nightmare where she and her horse get chased through the forest by a giant DW. And you know what? That's my nightmare now too. Thanks a lot, Emily. Emily gets saved by an old woman in a cottage, who offers her a snack. Surprise, surprise, the food turns out to be a fly, which is now buzzing around inside Emily's stomach.
I can feel it buzzing.
Correction, that is now my new nightmare. Emily realizes the lady is the same old woman from the song. The woman admits she made it all up for attention.
Maybe I told a little fib, and then I couldn't stop telling them.
But why? Potential cannibalism aside, why would you lie about eating live animals? Who are you hoping to impress with a song that ends with you dying? DW tracks down Emily and yanks her out of the house as she pleads for her life.
I'm sorry, DW. I don't know why I lied. I'll give you the ball.
The old lady does nothing to save Emily and instead decides to eat her horse. What the hell? Emily wakes up and finally comes clean. She confesses the truth to DW, who is still confused why Emily lied in the first place.
But why did you lie to us in the first place? We're your friends.
Are you, though? Emily admits she lied so she could have the ball all to herself. She offers it to DW, who, as it turns out, doesn't even want it.
It doesn't even bounce that well.
Instead of trying to track down the ball's real owner, the kids leave it in the grass for some other poor sap to find. Thus, the vicious cycle continues. Let's review. Emily lied to her best friend so she could have some dumb bouncy ball all to herself. DW refused to leave Emily be and stalked her everywhere she went. When DW got too close to the truth, Emily made up even more lies to save her ass. This led DW to badger and berate Emily at every chance until she threatened to stop being friends with her, which may not be the worst thing in the world. And even when Emily finally confessed and gave the ball to DW, it turns out she didn't even want it in the first place. So, F you Emily for lying to your friends and digging yourself in deeper until you made yourself sick. And of course, for stalking her best friend and badgering her to no end, F you DW.
And I say, hey!
Arthur explains how there are some things you can never prepare for, like having a little sister who's the spawn of Satan.
Build me an army worthy of Mordor.
At least now we know for sure that DW was a mistake. At preschool, Miss Morgan gathers the kids for story time. Everyone puts down their toys except for DW, who apparently can't hear Miss Morgan. Okay, but she can still see, right? Can she not see that the other kids have stopped playing?
DW, get on your...
That afternoon, DW is sitting in front of the TV with the volume on blast, much to her brother's chagrin. Her dad tells her to turn it down until DW whines that she can't hear. Mr. Reed takes DW to the ear doctor, who's conveniently named Dr. Tinnitus. Guess she must be the daughter of geriatrics and anesthesia. Is her grandpa named Pappy Smear?
That's disgusting.
DW tries to play off her problem by blaming it on Arthur.
I'm only here because my brother's mean and selfish and hates marrying Moo Cow.
That line will only get you so far in life. Mr. Reed explains how DW has had a rash of ear infections over the past year. What the hell has she been jamming in her ears? The doctor explains how the gunk in DW's ears is preventing sound from getting through. Gross. Dr. Tinnitus says they'll need to put DW to sleep so they can put fluid-draining tubes in her ears, and I'm on board with any plan that involves putting DW to sleep. That night, the Reed family is having dinner when Arthur graciously offers DW the last burrito.
Go ahead. You should have it.
This triggers her suspicions as DW is incapable of perceiving acts of kindness. Arthur continues to be nice to her while DW is perturbed by her brother's persistent generosity. Arthur brings her milk and cookies only for DW to yell in his face.
I want juice, not milk.
What kind of serial killer drinks juice with cookies? Arthur nearly snaps, but ultimately resists the urge to punch his sister's lights out. DW demands to know why Arthur is being so nice. Arthur explains that he admires DW for being so brave about her operation. DW savors the moment as it's likely the only time her brother will ever be proud of her. The next day, DW goes in for her pre-surgery screening. The pediatrician tries to take a blood sample and DW has a full-on meltdown.
Wait! I can't look! Hold me tighter! Tighter! Not that tight!
They get the sample and DW lies to herself that she's braver than her brother.
Arthur would have cried like a baby!
Screw off. DW is ready to call it a day, until the nurse informs her that she still has 3 more doctors to see. That night, DW is worried she'll wake up in the middle of her surgery. She has a nightmare where she gets operated on by Miss Morgan and the Tibble Tumors, who determine she's the biggest coward in the world.
She has no bravery at all! Not a single speck!
I could have told you that. The next morning, DW lies to her dad that she doesn't need the surgery, claiming she can hear the TV even with the sound turned off.
I can hear it even with the sound off! Let's cancel the operation and have pancakes!
Mr. Reed assures her that it's normal to be nervous and tells her everything will be fine. The Reed family go to the hospital, where the nurse gives DW a number 1 patient sticker. This goes directly to DW's head as she declares herself the best patient in the world.
Everybody loves me! I'm the number 1 patient!
Mr. Reed holds his daughter's hand as the doctor puts her to sleep. Oh, wouldn't that be nice? During the operation, DW dreams of being a superhero with ultra hearing powers.
No one is too quiet for Superhero Girl!
So she's basically shitty Daredevil? Also, I'm no expert on superheroes, but I'm pretty sure you're not supposed to embroider your secret identity onto the front of your costume. The surgery goes off without a hitch. Damn. DW is heading home when she sees the same doctor give a number 1 sticker to another kid. This sends DW into a fit of rage as there can only be 1 number 1 patient.
There can be only one!
Sometime later, DW is back to driving her brother insane as she insists on checking his ears. She tells him his brain is missing and then threatens to give him brain surgery. And honestly, I'm not sure which is worse, DW with a police badge or DW with a medical degree. Let's review. DW screwed up her ears so badly that she needed to get surgery. She took advantage of her brother's sympathy and yelled in his face whenever he did something wrong. She psyched herself out as the operation drew closer until her family convinced her she was going to be fine. She used her doctor's kindness as an excuse to inflate her ego, and imagined herself as the world's most craptastic superhero. And even after the surgery was over, she rewarded her brother's kindness by pestering him to no end and threatening to remove his brain. F-U-D-W.
And I say,
Arthur and DW watch their neighbor Mr. Sipple get ready to move. Arthur explains how Mr. Sipple used to be so annoying that he even got on DW's nerves.
It's 9 in the morning and some of us are trying to hear ourselves sing!
Mr. Sipple packs up the last of his belongings, but not before gifting the Reed children with a singing fish.
roll your boat gently down the stream.
DW becomes infatuated with the tone-deaf tuna and claims it as her pet, because I guess she's used to having pets that have already died. Trust me, I'll get to you later. DW beats Arthur in a staring contest and brags that she's the Stairmaster, which makes sense since she tends to walk all over her brother. Arthur demands a rematch when Pal gets into a barking match with a bulldog. You see, Binky? That's what a bulldog is supposed to look like. The bulldog freaks out DW by licking her leg, but sadly doesn't try to eat her. Turns out the dog belongs to their new neighbors.
We're the Molinas, your new neighbors.
I thought their last name was Vecinos. Wait a minute. I'm a dumbass. Mr. Molina invites the Reed family to dinner to meet their daughter Visita and his son Alberto, who's 5 years older than Arthur. DW delights at the idea of manipulating a young girl to be her protege.
He did it! It wasn't me.
Good.
The next day, Arthur and Buster watch Alberto from their bedroom window like a pair of creepers. Arthur worries he won't have anything in common with Alberto.
I'll be lucky if he doesn't give me a wedgie. What's that? I don't know.
Arthur, you wear grandma sweaters and Harry Potter glasses. You know what a wedgie is. Meanwhile, DW dreams of being Vecita's senpai.
Here's the rope to tie me up with.
Nope. Not touching that one. Dominatrix Winifred is overjoyed at the thought of having someone to boss around. She plans to kick Vecita's ass at Tower of Cows and confuse the goose.
She probably doesn't even know what a goose is.
I can't tell if that's racist or ageist. Either way, shame on you. That night, the Reed family heads to the Molinas for dinner, while Arthur and DW bitch and moan all the way to their front door. Mrs. Reed tells her kids to shut up, as she's eager to make friends with adults who aren't her husband's fuck buddy. DW tries to sink her claws into Vecita, only for the 3-year-old to run circles around her. They play a game of pick-up ticks, gross, and Vecita wipes the floor with her. Though to be fair to DW, this game doesn't make any sense. If the objective is just to grab all the ticks, then it's not really a game of skill or chance. Whoever has the longest arms will always win. At least you get an even playing field with hungry hippos. Meanwhile, Arthur tries to act cool around Alberto. Guess how that goes.
Pretty cool stairs.
Bruh.
Alberto takes him upstairs, and Arthur fears what he'll find in his room.
Posters of rock groups, or even worse, posters of girls.
He's 13, Arthur. You should be way more worried about his room smelling like day-old ass. Surprise, surprise, it turns out Alberto is an even bigger nerd than Arthur. The two bond over their love of Bionic Bunny, while DW continues to get her ass handed to her by Vecita.
You're the hot tomato.
DW is such a sore loser that she begs her mom to take her home. Before they leave, Alberto lends Arthur his Spanish comic books, leading the latter to experience his first man crush.
Alberto is so cool.
The next day, DW tries to boss around Vecita on the trampoline, which would probably work if she was any good at gymnastics. Arthur starts to cling to Alberto like plastic wrap and lends him his walkie-talkie so they can keep tabs on each other every minute of the day. Wonderful. That night, Arthur tries to get Senpai to notice him.
Alberto, look out the window.
What you doing?
He asks Alberto to translate the Spanish comics, because it's 2002 and Duolingo won't be a thing for another 10 years.
What does Conejo Bionico mean?
It's a Bionic Bunny comic. What the hell do you think it means? Though it's weird the Spanish name ruins the alliteration. They could at least call him Conejo Computerizado or Conejo Cibernetico. Arthur continues to pester Alberto as he has him translate the comic book word by word.
What does an L mean?
The, Arthur. It's the masculine form of the. Tu eres un cerdo hirmiguero idiotico.
What?
I took 4 semesters of Spanish in college. I gotta use it for something. DW makes one last-ditch effort to break Vecita by teaching her her favorite game. DW turns her back for 2 seconds, only to find her protege has mastered the relatively simple task of stacking plastic cows. DW calls it quits, and chews out Vecita for daring to be better than her.
You were supposed to let me teach you how to do it. You're the worst student I've ever had.
Yeah, don't let the door hit your ass on the way out. Later that week, DW is bitching how she'll never have someone to boss around.
No, Kate, like this.
While Arthur tries to invite himself to the cookout. Turns out the Molinas are having a private family barbecue, and Arthur can't seem to fathom why he's not invited. Mrs. Reed intervenes when her husband starts to get a hard-on for Mr. Molina's jerk-rubbed chicken. Yes, I know jerk chicken comes from Jamaica. Shut up. The next day, Alberto brings Arthur their leftover chicken, along with a Spanish to English dictionary, so Arthur can translate the comic books himself. Which is nice, until you realize this is Alberto's subtle way of telling Arthur to piss off and stop bugging him.
To tango, I've got you.
Meanwhile, DW is taking her plastic fish for a walk, as any sane child would do, when she spots Vecita freaking out over her dinner.
The peas are touching the potatoes!
DW knows just what to do, because much like herself, sensory overload is a real bitch.
Green and white foods can never touch each other. It's a 3 7/8 thing.
Is that really the lesson you want kids to take away from this PBS? DW saves the day thanks to colorism, and finally gets the loyal Koi she was hoping for. Fan-freaking-tastic.
Will you show me how to blow bubbles and how to whistle?
It was at this moment that he knew. He fucked up.
Let's review. The Reed kids scared off their next-door neighbor and were hell-bent on doing the same thing to their new neighbors. Arthur pestered Alberto to no end when the older boy showed him a sliver of kindness. Arthur insisted they stay in touch and then called him persistently so Alberto could translate his goddamn comics. And Arthur only backed off once Alberto gave him the most backhanded gift imaginable. Meanwhile, DW spent the whole episode trying and failing to boss around a little girl, who was already superior to her in every conceivable way. way. She yelled in Vecita's face when she refused to play by her rules and almost made the poor girl cry. And even when she inevitably won Vecita over, she instantly regretted becoming her senpai, even though that's what she wanted in the first place. So, F you Arthur for sucking up to the one cool kid you know and using him as a human dictionary. And of course, for trying to boss around her new friend and then yelling in her face, F you DW.
And I say, hey!
Arthur introduces DW's pet bird Spanky, which DW specifically got to help torture her brother.
Ouch! I want that one.
Arthur doesn't hold it against him though, as he knows Spanky has it far worse as DW's pet. Thankfully, Spanky is put out of his misery as the feral featherhead croaks just 90 seconds into the episode. DW takes Spanky's corpse to her father to try to wake him up, as she fails to realize her parakeet is no more. It has ceased to be. It's kicked the bucket, expired, and gone to meet its maker. Mr. Reed tries to get it through DW's thick skull that what she's holding is an ex-parakeet.
I think he's dead, honey.
Dead? Well, when is he gonna stop being dead? Is something dead?
Calm down, Arthur. It's not your sister. The family holds a funeral for the petrified parakeet, which Arthur uses as an excuse to point out how Spanky was kind of a jerk.
I'm sorry I told you to shut up so much. And the time when you poked holes in my Bionic Bunny coloring book, I wasn't really angry.
Time and place, Arthur. DW says she'll never have another friend like Spanky, which is a drastic understatement. She makes a shrine for Spanky, only to find a toad hiding in the bottom of the tin can. DW yells at the toad to get lost, even though she's the one who used the toad's home as a flower vase. Arthur tries to cheer up DW by taking her to get a new pet. Terrific. DW gripes and moans how none of the other pets are as good as Spanky. Not even the ones that look exactly like Spanky.
They're about to feed the boa constrictor. It eats bird eggs whole.
Don't even think of asking me.
Seems like a perfect fit to me. You two even share the same diet. DW returns to Spanky's grave to find the same toad trying to rightfully reclaim her home. DW threatens to flush the toad down the toilet if she doesn't go away.
Just gonna have to go find yourself a new home.
The toad takes this as an invitation to move into DW's backpack. At preschool, DW is nearly pranked by the beta Tibbletwerps when the toad saves her ass at the last second. During show and tell, DW is about to present Spanky's belongings when the vengeful toad wreaks havoc on the classroom. Did he just rip out her hair? Everyone freaks out except for DW, who continues to act like a stone-cold tsundere.
How do you get him to stay on your shoulder like that? I just tell him to get lost.
It's not like I like you or anything, Baka.
That afternoon, DW is walking home with her mom and conveniently forgets to mention the chaos she caused during show and tell. DW drops her coin purse in the ditch and the toad thanklessly fishes it out of the sewer. Gross. DW falsely accuses the toad of robbing her and threatens to call the cops. That night, Mr. Reed tries to help his daughter get over the death of her parakeet.
If I always pick up my socks and eat all my salad, will Spanky come back?
DW, we both know you were never gonna finish your salad. She tries to wish Spanky back to life, but instead finds the trespassing toad resting peacefully in her cage. DW finally snaps and decides to kill the annoying amphibian once and for all. She fails to catch the toad while simultaneously destroying everything in her room. She somehow doesn't wake her parents or her baby sister and goes to bed without even bothering to clean up the mess she made.
You've won for now, Toady, but I'll be ready in the morning. And then there's gonna be trouble.
Yeah, there'll be trouble when your parents see what you did to your room and ground you for the rest of your life. The next morning, DW continues her mouse hunt, toad hunt, only to find she's scared away the frightened frog. DW does a full 180 as she's desperate to find the toad now that she can't have it. DW finds her mom in the basement and fears her toad got thrown into the washer with her laundry.
I'm a pet killer! I should be thrown in jail!
Well, you heard her. Lock her up. Oh god, please don't write lock her up in the comments. I don't need the algorithm thinking I'm that kind of channel. Surprise, surprise, it turns out Toady was in the bottom of the basket the whole time. DW chases her around the house as Toady contaminates her father's workspace.
Did you? Thanks, Dad.
I love how Mr. Reed is just like, same crap, different day. DW chases Toady into the yard, where the poor creature nearly gets run over by Mr. Sipple's lawnmower.
You're going to mow my toe!
Your toe?
You're going to kill my pet!
DW barely manages to stop him from turning Toady into frog guts. DW officially adopts the toad as her own, despite her parents' objections.
Yuck. But you're pretty cute for a toady work face.
Way to end the episode with the biggest backhand compliment. Thank God Toady eventually left DW to be the mob wife to the head of the underground stock exchange. No, seriously, that's an actual story arc in Arthur.
Why don't we have any lint?
Lint is worthless.
Well, I sat on some at the salon and it was very soft. That's all I'm saying.
Did I mention how fucking wild this show can be? Let's review. DW badgered her pet bird until it collapsed from physical and emotional exhaustion. She refused to accept that her pet was dead and tried to wish it back to life. She took out her grief on a blameless toad who had the misfortune of crossing DW's path. When the toad refused to leave DW's side, she did everything in her power to make the frog miserable. DW's frog feud resulted in the destruction of both her room and her entire preschool, as she's likely banned from show and tell for the rest of her life. She accused the helpless toad of being a thief like a full-on Karen and straight up tried to kill her, which she only failed to do due to her absolute incompetence. When the toad finally left her alone, like she wanted, DW suddenly changed her mind and decided she liked having a new animal to torture. She chased the toad through her dad's kitchen, which will now have to be washed and sterilized, and almost got her new pet pulverized to a pulp. F-U-D-W.
And I say, hey!
Arthur explains how Albert Einstein spent his whole life asking questions, like how does the universe work, and will I ever be remembered for anything other than this photo? In both cases, only time will tell. DW interrupts to ask when the show is gonna start.
When's the show gonna start? You've been talking forever!
It'll start when you shut up. See how that works? At preschool, the kids line up for recess when DW cuts to the front of the line. She makes herself the line leader until Miss Morgan tells her to take her entitled ass to the very back. Miss Morgan reminds the kids that career day is coming up, and every child will need to give a presentation on what they want to be when they grow up, which is something she should have told them before she made them line up to leave. Emily says she wants to be a ballerina, because what the hell else would she be?
I wanted to be one all my life.
You're 5. You've had no life. The Tibble tryhards argue over whether they should be cowboys or cops. Even though there's an obvious middle ground, their feeble minds are too stupid to figure out. Turns out DW is so petty and egotistical that her only goal in life is to be first. Whether she be the first human to learn how to fly, or the first child to run face first into Arthur's fist. Back at home, DW calls dibs on the TV, only to find her dad watching live-action footage of the moon landing.
I was Arthur's age when this was shown live on TV.
So you were 8 in 1969? Mr. Reed, are you telling me you're 63? DW learns nobody has landed on Mars yet, and instantly proclaims she'll be the first. Arthur responds by laughing in her face, as he should.
DW? An astronaut? Now there's a crazy idea.
DW argues she can do anything she puts her mind to, even though she's given up on everything else she's ever had a passing interest in.
I'm only 4 and I can already count to 10.
It's true. Once she gets to 20, then we're really in trouble. Mr. Reed agrees that his daughter could be the first person on Mars, as he'll do anything to get her as far away as possible. DW then imagines what it'd be like to go to Mars. She ropes Nadine into her delusional fantasy, and the two land on the surface of the red planet, which for some reason has its own moon made of cheese and fossilized trees made of broccoli. Sure, why not?
They should be throwing us a parade. It's not every day that someone from Earth comes to visit them.
Her dopey daydream gets interrupted by Pal, and DW angrily knocks her pillow fort to the ground. Very mature. DW goes to visit the Turbo Tibbles, who have finally discovered what a sheriff is. The goonish gun-toters are in the middle of arresting their raggedy-ass teddy bear when DW brags she's going to be the first person on Mars. The shoddy sheriffs tell her it's a bad idea, since they just watched a movie on the Sci-Fi Channel about mutant dinosaurs who run rampant on Mars and paint the planet red with Martian blood. And honestly, I'm more surprised that isn't the premise of a Sci-Fi Channel movie. They made 6 Sharknadoes, but they couldn't make one Attack of the Sleepless Martian Dinosaurs. DW stupidly believes the Tibble twits and gets scared off the idea of going to Mars. That night, Mr. Reed busts out his telescope, nerd, and shows DW exactly where Mars is. DW is horrified to see the planet is really red and assumes the Tibble turbines were right, until Arthur tells her to quit being stupid.
Tibbles! I should have known better.
Yeah, why do you still hang out with these two? Mr. Reed tells his daughter it's normal to be scared and explains how people were once panicked by a radio broadcast of War of the Worlds, even though it's been proven that story is an absolute lie. Get a damn fact checker, PBS. Mr. Reed explains how the more you know about something, the less scary it is. Even though I'm way more afraid of DW the more I know about her. Mr. Reed decides to take his daughter to the local museum to learn about Mars, while Mrs. Reed is nowhere to be seen, because I guess her husband gave her a hall pass for the week. The two have have a great time as DW somehow manages to avoid burning the place to the ground. It's finally career day, and DW insists on going first. What a surprise. Her presentation gets off to a rocky start when the Big Mouth brothers try to scare everyone with their mutant Martian malarkey.
Mars is called the Red Planet because the Martian blood glows red in the dark. I don't want to hear this. Are they going to get us?
Why does she still have this goddamn whistle? DW gains recontrol of her presentation and explains how nobody knows if there's life on Mars, but she wants to be the one to find out. DW gets a standing ovation from the class. Her speech was so moving that she even convinced the Tibble tree stumps to become astronauts, because the last thing we need is for these three bozos wreaking havoc across the universe. And DW never mentions Mars or astronauts ever again, because just like every other hobby of hers, she probably dropped interest in it the second something else grabbed her limited attention span. Let's review. DW decided she wanted to go to Mars, not because she loved space, but just so she could be the first. Her obsession with being first led her down a path of manic obsession, and she changed her entire personality to revolve around Mars. She allowed herself to get duped by the Tibble Twisters again, and became scared of Mars, until her father and brother showed her how stupid she was being. And even when she gave a kick-ass presentation on Mars, it ultimately inspired the no-good noobs to follow in her footsteps. F you, DW.
And I say, hey!
Arthur says there are some things that are best done by yourself, like tying your shoes or learning how to animate more than 5 frames per second. DW storms in to fat-shame her brother for eating all the pancakes. Ugh, why is this animation so cursed? DW gets to take home her preschool class pet and spends the afternoon staring down her new prey. The Tibble torpedoes whine how they also want to take the rabbit home. Miss Morgan sides with DW as she's the lesser of two evils, even though DW has a consistent track record of losing or killing every single pet she's ever had. The kids head outside as the jealous jackasses heckle DW from the sidelines.
Can't believe she's trusting DW with an innocent little bunny. She's gonna mess up.
Is it bad that I'm on their side for once? Mrs. Reed stupidly agrees to let DW keep the bunny in the same room her baby sister sleeps in. What could possibly go wrong?
Larry and I are best buddies.
Who names a rabbit Larry? You don't give animals people names. Then again, I guess all the animals in this show have people names. Arthur and his mom tell DW that taking care of a pet is a huge responsibility, which feels like a conversation they should have had before they agreed to look after Larry. Her mom reminds her not to take Larry out of his cage without a leash. DW claims she'll be the best bunny sitter in the world, in the sense that she'll probably sit on Larry by accident at some point in the episode.
Arthur, bunnies don't eat carrots. They eat pellets.
Alright, I'll give you that one. That's actually a good thing to know. 1 gold star for DW. She kicks Arthur out of her room so she can have Larry all to herself. Larry, you poor bastard. That night, DW brags how Larry does everything she tells him to, like eating his food and shitting all over his cage. Arthur tries to chime in when DW takes things from 0 to 100.
You may know about dogs, Arthur, but you don't know beans about bunnies.
You're 4. You don't even know how to spell beans. After dinner, DW's mom reads her favorite book, Hop Along the Hare, even though I distinctly remember him being a frog. Is this some Berenstain Bears Mandela shit? DW feels bad that Larry has to stay cooped up in his cage.
But he has you for a friend, right? It doesn't get any better than that.
She said sarcastically. DW steals Pal's leash and tries to fit a dog collar around Larry, even though Larry already has his own collar she could hook the leash to.
Can you smell it, Larry? The fresh, fruity air?
Are you feeling it now, Mr. Krabs?
She takes the rabbit outside and almost immediately loses track of him. Who could have seen that coming? DW has a full-on crap attack while Arthur rightfully chews her out. DW is so defensive that she stops her search to get into a pissing match with her brother.
You lost Pal!
Yeah, and whose fault was that? Also, yes, I know you all want me to review this movie, and I'm going to, but I'm saving it for when we reach 50,000 subscribers. So if you want me to review this sooner rather than later, please hit the subscribe button. DW yells at Arthur for being so mean, go figure, and bursts into crocodile tears. Instead of telling their parents, Arthur takes pity on his soul-sucking sister and goes to LaDonna for help. Cause who better to catch a rabbit than a bigger, slightly smarter rabbit? LaDonna and Bud head to the Reed house where they discover Larry escaped through a hole in the fence. DW continues to cry at the top of her lungs while LaDonna tries to assure her everything will be alright. And then Bud starts talking.
Foxes are the worst.
They can eat a bunny in one big gulp.
Fuck you, foxes are awesome. LaDonna says she can lure Larry back with her special bunny call, which is apparently a thing.
This might look weird, but it worked once, so I'm gonna try it again.
You're saying you've done this more than once? I'm starting to see why your family had to leave Louisiana. Bud distracts DW with his bayou babbling, while LaDonna uses her primal psychic link to find Larry. Turns out Larry hopped right out of the frying pan and directly into the fire, as he ends up in the middle of the Tibbles' backyard. The crappy cowboys chase the poor bunny all over the yard. Thankfully, Larry escapes before the Beta brothers can turn him into their next meal. Larry hops all the way back to the Reed house, where the kids finally catch him. They go to tell DW, who's dead-ass asleep thanks to Bud's dull drawl.
Did you know the turkeys will follow you home if you let them?
Yeah, it's getting them to leave the next morning that's the hard part. Arthur puts DW to bed and sneaks out before she has a chance to screw things up again. DW then has a cost-effective nightmare where the Tibble tree huggers torment her for losing Larry.
Bunny loser, bunny loser. No, come back.
DW wakes up in a cold sweat and assumes the whole thing was just a dream. How convenient. She gets a phone call from the Tibble trash, who threaten her with blackmail for losing Larry. DW says fuck that and promptly hangs up on their asses. The episode ends with Arthur feeding Larry a carrot. That way DW will be forced to clean up his impending diarrhea. Let's review. DW insisted on taking care of the class pet, despite her tumultuous history with house pets. She hogged the bunny all to herself and refused to take any advice from her family. She insisted on taking the rabbit outside and lost him almost immediately. She yelled at her brother for trying to help her and did absolutely nothing to get the bunny back home. And even when the kids finally caught the rabbit, DW slept through the whole thing and convinced herself it was all just a dream. That way she doesn't have to learn from her mistakes and can continue to be a petty pet sitter. F you, DW.
And I say, hey!
Arthur imagines turning his room into the TVA from Loki. He says the best feature would be how the room would clean itself. Speaking of which, Arthur's mom hounds him to clean his room, but the avoidant Aardvark is more concerned about the upcoming festival.
Just one more day until the Happy Crazy Wow Day at the park.
Kind of a weird name. Happy Crazy Wow sounds less like a festival name and more like a child describing the symptoms of their own ADHD. The kids want to play soccer in the park, so Arthur goes to get his ball. He struggles to navigate his own room, which is such a mess that his dog has been stuck under all his crap for several days. He tells Pal not to get stuck again, and then traps him under a pile of dirty clothes. How the hell is this poor puppy still alive? Arthur is about to leave with the ball when his mom starts to bust his balls. Arthur convinces her to let him go to the park, and then leaves without closing the door. What a dick. That night, Arthur is watching Alien Zoo Squad, a show about anthropomorphic animals within a show about anthropomorphic animals. Mrs. Reed puts her foot down and tells her son to clean his room, while DW wastes no time taking control of the TV. Instead of listening to his mother, Arthur spies on his neighbor's TV and has Buster place his phone by the television, because it's not like he can just tape the show and watch it after he's done cleaning.
I might be as smart as the brain.
Does the brain not know how to record a VHS? The next morning, DW tries to drown her toys in her cereal, which is a normal thing for a child to do.
Ah, I'm drowning. Help me.
Toys, stay out of the cereal, please.
Arthur is about to leave for the festival when his mom tells him he's not going anywhere. Mrs. Reed forbids her son from leaving the house until he cleans his room.
You've put this off long enough now.
Wait, you didn't make him do it last night after you caught him trying to watch TV? That one's on you, Jane. DW laughs at her brother's comeuppance, as bratty bitches tend to do, when her mom tells her she also needs to clean her messy room. Who's laughing now, smartass? Arthur whines that cleaning his room will take forever. And that's when Mr. Reed comes up with a very stupid idea. He suggests Arthur and DW should work together to clean their rooms.
When I was little and my brother and I had chores to do, many hands make light work.
That only works if the hands aren't constantly flipping each other off. Mrs. Reed is against the idea of her kids being alone in the same room for more than 5 minutes, lest they tear each other to shreds. Mr. Reed insists multiple hands will get the job done faster, as he's used to juggling multiple hand jobs. The squabbling siblings start with Arthur's room, where I assume Pal is still trapped under a pile of dirty socks.
Let's do this quick. I'm gonna be late.
That's what she said.
DW shows no regard for her brother's belongings and tries to get rid of his postcards from Buster. Arthur insists postcards from Buster have a sentimental value, while DW points out that postcards from Buster aren't as good as he remembers. DW continues to grind her brother's gears as she insists on playing with his toys instead of helping clean. Arthur yells at her for throwing away his bag of Muffy's cookies, which he keeps to remind himself to never trust that thieving bitch ever again.
Who would buy something with your picture on it?
70 million people, that's who. Arthur chews her out for stealing his toys and making his room messier than before.
Hey, where did you get my light bulb costume?
Your light bulb costume? How is your memory worse than your eyesight? DW tries to do some actual cleaning when Arthur's hoarding instincts get the better of him.
You don't have a popsicle stick collection, Arthur. Not yet. But what if I decide to start one?
Arthur banishes DW to the corner while he grabs the sword from under his bed to slay the demon wench. DW finds a random note from Francine and teases her brother for having a girlfriend. Ooh.
If you don't love her, then why is your face red?
Because he's fighting the urge to throw you out the window to avenge his model plane. Mr. Reed tries to get Arthur to make peace with DW, even though he'd have an easier time making peace with North Korea. DW agrees to shut up for 5 minutes, while Mr. Reed pats himself on the back and leaves without making sure the two kids don't kill each other. Against all odds, the two actually work together and clean Arthur's room in record time. Arthur is about to get the fuck out of Dodge when DW reminds him they still need to clean her room. Arthur tries to speedrun the cleanup when DW's OCD rears its ugly head.
They have to go in a certain order. They have to be just right or they won't be happy.
She yells at Arthur when he tries to rearrange her toys and nearly has a panic attack when he refuses to put her doll clothes on these microscopic choking hazards. The Reed parents are baffled their stupid plan fell apart and blame Arthur for not holding up his end of the bargain. Arthur says he can't do anything because DW won't let him, yet his father still has the gall to blame him for being a bad sibling. DW interrupts and asks to clean her room by herself, much to her father's dismay. Mrs. Reed usurps her husband's authority, as she's through letting him pretend to be the alpha. She agrees to let DW clean her own room by herself, while Arthur finally gets to go to the festival. Arthur asks DW if she wants any help before he leaves. DW rejects his offer because she doesn't want him to miss the festival, and also because he has cooties. Gross. Arthur gets to the park, where he spends the afternoon bouncing on trampolines, juggling with clowns, and trying to drown his teacher. Arthur nearly blames DW for his late arrival, before finally admitting he's been a bit of an asshole. It would seem all's well that ends well, until Mr. Frensky guilts the kids into helping him clean up the park. Here we go again. And we never see Mr. Reed's brother. Ever. Because he probably never existed in the first place. It's more likely David created an imaginary brother as a coping mechanism to deal with the reality of being a lowly beta cuck trapped in a loveless marriage while only being able to admire his true soulmate from afar. Let's review. Arthur refused to clean his room even after his mom told him to several times. He blatantly disregarded her demands and was somehow surprised when he was forced to do his chores. Meanwhile, Mr. Reed insisted on making his children work together against their will, even though he probably would have driven Arthur to the festival, no questions asked, if he knew Mr. Ratburn would be there in a swimsuit. The Reed kids instantly got on each other's nerves, primarily due to DW's lack of helpfulness or general competence. Arthur proved to be just as bad, as he hoarded useless junk and showed an equal amount of disregard for his sister's belongings. Mr. Reed insisted his idea was the only right solution, and nearly drove his kids insane, until DW demanded to do her chores by herself. And you know it's bad when DW has to step in to resolve the conflict. So, F you Arthur for neglecting your chores and whining when you had to deal with the consequences of your actions. F you Mr. Reed for trying to make your kids work together and refusing to admit when your plan didn't work. And of course, for failing to help her brother clean and yelling at him for touching her toys. F you DW.
And I say, hey!
DW puts on a tacky puppet show about the meaning of love, and proceeds to smash her doll's face holes together.
I know.
That's not what you said when you tried to seduce James. She also says you can get love from your friends and family.
Arthur! I love you, DW.
Hold up, what kind of janky finger family is this? We all know the song. It goes daddy finger, mommy finger, then brother finger. That being said, I think your mom wants to talk to you by herself, DW. The bratty baby ends her shoddy show with a message that the best form of love is the kind that can be bought at a store, because we're living in a material world and DW is a material girl. Grandma Thora indulges her defiant granddaughter by giving her a new toy.
Even though a half birthday isn't really a present-giving occasion.
It is when you know she probably won't make it to her next full birthday, not if I have anything to say about it. DW tries to find room for her new teddy bear, only to get buried under an avalanche of toys. Gee, I guess letting a 4-year-old clean her own room wasn't such a good idea after all. Mrs. Reed puts her foot down and decides to clean house. She tells DW she needs to get rid of her old toys, and the greedy glutton almost dies on the spot. almost. DW begs her mom not to donate the toys she barely plays with. Mrs. Reed graciously offers to help her daughter sort through her toys. Guess how well that goes. DW tries to trick her mom into thinking she's cleaned her room by hiding all her useless crap under her bed, and things only escalate from there.
DW, are you gonna make this easy or hard?
When has she ever made things easy? DW refuses to part with any of her stuffed animals, as they're clearly her only friends.
Not Barney!
Hey, fuck Barney. I mean that. If we can hit 40,000 subs by Halloween, I will personally review the god-awful Barney movie. Mrs. Reed gives up trying to help and tells DW she needs to get rid of 2 boxes of toys by the end of the week. DW decides to spite her mom by giving away all her toys, including herself apparently, and yells at her for not bending over backwards to please her.
You never let me have what I want!
Who talks like that? You sound like Corey trying to reach the word count on his history report.
There are many people to choose from.
The next day at preschool, DW announces she's giving away all her toys to whoever can prove they love her the most. The abhorrent ass-kissers rush to DW's side and claim to be her #1 stans.
I take all the sand you touch and keep it in a little jar beside my bed.
That's not concerning at all. DW next turns to Emily, who refuses to lick DW's boot. DW warns Emily that nothing will become of nothing, and yells at her for not groveling at her heel. DW reluctantly gives her toys to the trustless Tibbles, in the hopes of guilting her mom into buying her love back with even more toys.
Please, let me buy you lots of new toys to prove I love you.
I need you to be able to tell me what's wrong with this without me explaining it verbally.
Unsurprisingly, Mrs. Reed calls her daughter's bluff and tells her to enjoy having no toys, which would be karmic justice if DW didn't also give away Grandma Thora's Clarissa doll. Seriously, imagine your kid giving away your parents' most prized possession and tell me you wouldn't whoop their ass into oblivion. That night, DW starts to regret her decision, but refuses to admit she was wrong. She asks to play with her old toys, only to find the Tibble torpedoes assaulting them with mud grenades. DW begs them to stop, only for the bastard brothers to cruelly remind her that they aren't her toys anymore. Emily tries to comfort DW when she finds her crying under the playpen, only to get coldly rebuffed by the big-mouthed brat.
DW, what happened? Like you care.
And she wonders why she has no friends. Arthur says DW should just ask their mom for help. DW claims her mom won't help because she doesn't love her anymore, which isn't entirely a lie. She then asks Arthur to fix everything for her like he always does. Arthur tells her to piss off. Even DW's imaginary friend turns her back on her.
You're really on your own now.
DW goes back to the Tibble Terrors with her tail between her legs and asks to have her toys back. DW is horrified to find her toys have been mercilessly massacred and strewn about the yard. She tries to make off with the few remaining unharmed toys, only for the torturous Tibbles to callously pry them out of her hands. DW accepts her fate and is left crying in the rain. Quote, blow winds and crack your cheeks. Rage, blow. Just then, Arthur shows up to give the Tibbletwerps a long overdue ass-kicking. He storms into the Dragon's Den, while Nadine helps DW realize her family does love her. Arthur gets the toys back, but not without sustaining a battle wound.
You're the best brother ever.
Goddamn right.
DW vows to make it up to her brother, and sells her toys to pay for his glasses. She also offers to buy her mom a present to prove she loves her. Mrs. Reed reminds her, again, that love isn't something you have to buy. DW lastly apologizes to Emily, and offers up her Kmart brand Barbie knockoff as a peace offering.
I never asked you to give them all away.
I'm never. That's a lot of nevers.
Let's review. DW refused to give away her toys as she believed love can only be shown through material objects. When her mom forced her to clean her room, DW decided to give away all her toys in a misguided attempt to get even more toys. She repulsed Emily with her demands for affection and stupidly gave all her toys to her least trustworthy friends, as they were the only ones willing to stroke her overly engorged ego. She instantly regretted her decision when she discovered the bad faith brothers were using her toys as target practice, but refused to accept help from anyone who didn't worship at her feet. She only apologized to her friends and family after her brother stepped in to save the day and nearly got his glasses destroyed. So, F you to the Tibbletwerps for taking advantage of your best friend and destroying her toys just to make her cry. And of course, for hoarding her toys and turning her back on her friends and family, F you DW.
And I say,
Hey, I have a Patreon. Sign up at patreon.com/mattneff to get your name in the thank you credits, along with early access to every FUDW and the chance to vote for future episodes. If there's a movie or show you'd like me to talk about, top-tier patrons can commission a review for my channel. Check out the link in the description to become an FUDW superfan.
And I say, hey, what a wonderful kind of day. If we could learn to work and play and get along with each other.